Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic, and my name is Roy. I love this mute function. What fun! I haven't found it necessary to drink since the 22nd of April, 1990, and I'm really grateful for that. And there are people in at least four or five other countries that are grateful as well. Those people being related to me by blood and not really having a choice in my insanity. It's good to see some familiar faces. I bump into Carol occasionally at some online meetings in India, and Deb. Oh my God, Deb and I go back to Queens. But really, I want to start off with Glenn because I got so. In case you haven't figured out from the accent by now, although my home group is the Baldwin Group of Long Island, New York, I got sober in India, and when we were in India, we would be waiting for American tourists to come in, and they would usually have this thing called speaker tapes. This is when we had tape recorders. And there was this enigma. There was this guy called Glenn K, who like had all these tapes of every meeting, and if you needed a tape, you heard something somewhere, some speaker referred to some speaker in his sharing. You try to track this Glenn K guy down, and of course he had a copy of whatever. And so, and I say enigma because I was in frickin' India. I'm assuming this guy was in the US somewhere, and everybody knew who Glenn K was, but I got sober BC, before computers. So, the way to track him down, beg some visiting American, please, when you go back to New York, find this guy. I'll give you money, postage, tell him to write to me. Higher power wanted me to practice patience. So here goes. Uh, the big book on page 58 says, oh, by the way, if my recovery is very big book based, so, if you're not into the big book, I hope you might get something out of it.
Roy, you actually spoke
Yes,
in Oyster Bay, and I recorded you in Oyster Bay.
but that's after I came to the
That was
States.
the first time we met face to face. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Love it. Um, so I was born in India, mixed parentage. My father's side of the family is Christian. My mother's side of the family is Hindu, which just means it's another religion. And the challenge is when you're a under 10-year-old kid, depending which grandmother you were visiting for the weekend, they tried to persuade you that the other half was the wrong kind and going to a warm place. Imagine an 8-year-old trying to figure out, oh my God, all those first cousins are going to hell. But the next weekend, it's all these first cousins are going to hell. So as you can see, I had sufficient spiritual confusion wired into my DNA before I even had my first drink. And my parents were both dental surgeons. My dad graduated from Liverpool University in England, and my mom graduated from NYU, and they both went back to India to teach dental in dental college and to practice dentistry. And alcohol is not taboo at our house. And my recollection as a kid growing up was if you were sick, someone would shove a teaspoon of brandy down your throat or some other such concoction. It was mixed into milk and a raw egg and some vile and disgusting tasting concoction, but yeah, it felt nice and warm. And my memories are Friday nights or Saturday nights, there'd be this whole bunch of doctors and dentists over at our house, and they'd have a couple of drinks, there'd be some dancing, there'd be some singing around the piano. Try to imagine a bunch of people with my accent singing Scottish and Irish songs. Oh my God. Anyway, and then they'd have dinner and then they'd go home. And it would be like 10:30 or 11. These weren't like the parties I attended. There were no fisticuffs. Nobody vomited into the into the nearest spotted plant. Nobody accidentally fed the entree to the dogs. Everybody went home with the right spouse. The cops were never called. Pretty tame affairs. Ours was rip roaring. But that's the atmosphere I grew up in. Alcohol is acceptable. It was fun. And if you were a big person, you could have alcohol. Now, It was so acceptable that as kids, they would give us a little glass of children's wine on days and occasions of special interest. And it's great to be in India because we have so many freaking religions between the Christians, the Hindus, the Jews, the Muslims, the Buddhists, the Seventh-day Adventists, and everybody else. We had plenty of days and occasions of national importance. So almost every day was a little wine glass on the table. It was probably 99% grape juice and a dash of alcohol, but hey, we got wine. And then as soon as we got into double digits, okay, we got graduated to this wonderful concoction the British left behind called shandy. So apparently, if you take an inch and a half of beer and you top up the glass with lemonade, it's okay to give to 10-year-old kids. But you know what? I have this clear recollection of a Sunday morning. I must have been 11, 10 or 11, sitting on the front porch with my dad. I don't know why he wasn't in church or me either. But anyway, you're sitting there and he's having a beer and I'm having a glass of shandy. A rite of passage. I had arrived. I was drinking with my dad. There's nothing taboo. Nobody was calling CPS to have my parents locked up for this outrageous behavior. That was the culture, and that's what I grew up in. I had my first blackout around 16. It was the day after I finished high school. Three of us kids went off to the mountains around Bombay, and I don't know whose idea it was, but one of the bright sparks said, "Hey, now that we're real men, let's get the real thing." And we walked off to the nearest liquor store and picked up two bottles of beer. Now, look, back in the day, you did not need ID to buy anything in India. Pretty true in a lot of places still. So here we were, three young thugs, Boy Scouts, hiking up this mountain. I had the beers in my bag, and by the time we got to the top, it was warm and flat, and none of us budding Einsteins had brought an opener along, but we got it open. Now, for a kid who's only drunk his grandmother's homemade wine and this lemonade infected, shandy, I had, as I raised the bottle to my mouth, I mean, this thing smelled like vomit, it smelled disgusting. And as I had the first sip, it tasted even worse going down. But I was a real man. So wiped the back of my mouth and thought, wow, that was great. And I passed it on to the next guy. I guess they were as big liars as I was because they pretended to like it too. But by the time that bottle came back around to me, I had my first spiritual experience. All of a sudden, the tiredness had evaporated. The breeze was refreshing. The view from the top of the mountain was spectacular. And the two bottles have gone in no time flat. And these guys are okay. And I had developed a raging thirst. So I volunteered to climb back down the mountain, and I wasn't monkeying around with beer anymore. I came back with a bottle of rum. So I remember up to that point, December 1st, 1977. 2 days later, I woke up at home. There was blood on my bed sheet. Uh, it's definitely evidence of vomiting. I called, and I have no recollection what happened. I called one of the guys. He said, dude, I can't tell you. You better call the other guy. I'm sworn to secrecy. I called the other guy. He refused to take my call. Now, that was December 1st, 1977. And that guy is still not talking to me. So, and the other guy won't tell me. So there's one blackout. I'm really not in a hurry to find out what I actually did that weekend. And that was it. I loved it. I said, when can we do this again? Couple of circumstances. My father died suddenly and unexpectedly. I was 16. And unfortunately, I was molested by the religious person who did the funeral service that night after the funeral. And I mean, this is just part of my experience. And now they had this war council and they decided that I should become a dentist. I got to tell you, I had no desire to spend my life looking into people's mouths. But when you're 16 years old, it's 1978 in India. There's no television, there's no nothing. You bloody well do what your parent and grandparent determines what your existence is going to be. So off I went to college. And within a week, I found about 6 or 7 other kids who were as disgruntled as me. And the next 3 years were glorious. We spent Monday to Thursday making plans for Thursday to Sunday because as any, chronic or real alcoholic from page 21 knows, the weekend starts on Thursday, man. Who works on Friday? And the weekends were great. We did the same thing for 3 years. We would scrounge, beg, borrow whatever money we could get and put whatever we could into our system. And since somebody said we can keep our sharing to alcohol, I got to tell you, whatever else we did, we used it very alcoholically. We did too much, it wasn't enough, and it got us in trouble. And every Monday morning, we'd get together on the basketball court to piece together our blackouts and figure out what happened. And it was the same story. Apparently, I was the guy who could drink the most, drive the straightest, and tell the most believable yarns to the parents I was dropping kids off to. So this went on for 3 years. Unfortunately, there was a very unpleasant interaction with me and the dean of the institution. Apparently, somebody had snitched that I had been selling some non-educational, unapproved, you know, entertainment value only products on campus. And I was given the choice of they were going to call the fuzz and book me, or I could volunteer to get kicked out of college. So I left. What a resentment. So here I was at 3 years of being a weekend warrior. I got myself a job and I started working at Bombay Airport. So now here's the first change. I went from a weekend warrior to a daily drinker. Now I'm a working man. I got a paycheck. Hey, my dad would come home from work every night from the clinic and have 2 small drinks. My mom would wait for his second drink and she'd have 1 drink. She's 84, 87 now, lives in Vancouver. She still has that 1 drink every evening. Says, hey, I'm going to do that. So the first change was I became a regular daily drinker from a weekend warrior. I don't know on what date or on what occasion the 2 drinks became three and the three became a nip. And I don't know. But the quantity went up. The next change was as the quantities went up, the money in my pockets went down. So that became a problem because I was in a relationship. I was engaged to be married to my high school sweetheart, who's this fiery Anglo Indian with Irish blood in her. And when are we getting married, honey? Next year, honey. I managed to stretch that out for about 10 years. And that would lead to some pretty nasty fights. No physical violence ever, but pretty nasty. And that's when I discovered these two magical properties that alcohol has. One is temporary deafness. I could see her mouth moving. I couldn't hear a thing. And the second would be temporary amnesia. The next morning, I didn't remember. And then you guys told me it's blackouts. So next change was I started drinking so much, I started going to work hungover. And now I started making mistakes at work. And I was a cargo supervisor in and we also responsible for baggage. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're just coming off a night of heavy drinking. You see some blue suitcase coming down the conveyor, and you can't make out whether it says Vladivostok or it says Vancouver. And you'll be bloody lucky if that bag lands up in Addis Ababa or Dar es Salaam or somewhere. So if anyone over here has ever had a bad bag misplaced on Swiss Air, Transport Airlines, Delta, Kuwait Airways, Gulf Air, Ethiopian, British Airways, Braniff, it was probably me. I'm making public amends, and now I never take checked-in baggage. I take carry-on bags and buy whatever I need when I get there. So, bosses don't like that kind of behavior. So I started getting the little love letters. So here's your first warning. And what? I'm not going to let you fire me. Who needs your rotten airline anyway? And I would quit. Hence the long list of airlines I listed. And one night I was shooting pool with 2 buddies of mine who were filmmakers. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, they said, what are you wasting your time in the airport? Come and do film production for us. Never been to film school, don't know a damn thing about film production. But you know what? 2 o'clock in the morning, it's a brilliant idea. So I called my boss. I told him where he could shove his lousy job. And I showed up the next morning at my friend's office and said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" They were in a blackout. I said, "You freaking hired me last night." And I got into the film business. Things went rapidly downhill. The next change was my health. I had an enlarged liver at the age of 26, and I was told to stop drinking. Fortunately, at that time in India, we had this wonderful natural product that you could smoke, uh, which really helped you alleviate the stress from withdrawal. And I believe it's now legal in about 16 states in the US. So I smoked the wacky weed for 2 months, and I said, "Hey, anyone who can't drink for 2 months can't be an alcoholic." Started again. And a year later, I had this horrendous motorcycle accident which almost killed me. A week in a coma, 36 stitches in my head, neck in a collar, back in a brace, 3 months flat. I took a discharge against medical advice. I mean, I could recover in my hotel. They had this little gizmo there, the fridge with the little mini bottles. I knew that would make me feel good. And I finally decided to kill myself in February of 1990. I was 18 years old. I was 28 years old. I was broke. I was unemployed. I had less than $3 American in the bank. And occasionally I was allowed to crash my grandmother's couch. And to give you an indication of how my alcoholism affected my family, my younger brother said, "Jump, you bastard," and put us out of our misery. Now, you know what? I'm standing on the ledge, threatening to jump. You're telling me to jump? Screw you. I'm not going to give you the pleasure. And I climbed off, and my friend Bryony Gannon called, and she said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And I said, "Well, boo hoo hoo." She said, "Hold on, I'm coming over." So she bought a bottle of rum, came over, and said, "Have a drink. What's the problem?" "Oh, I don't have a job." She said, "Stop drinking." "Okay, I don't have a girlfriend." So, well, if you stop drinking, you might get some woman crazy enough to go on a date with you. "I don't have any money." "Stop drinking." Anything, she said. She said, "Stop drinking." And the truth came out. I'm drinking too much and I can't stop. And she said, "Okay, I'm going to take you for a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous tomorrow, February 18th, 1990. I said, "Oh, AA doesn't work." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've been going for 6 years. I'm still drinking." She said, "Oh, have you ever gone sober?" I said, "No, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a couple of drinks and I go for this meeting. You know. Uh, so the backstory was when I was 22 years old, my grandmother 12-stepped me and sent me to my first AA meeting. Unbeknownst to me, her brother was AA number 4 in India. So my granny knew all about AA from 1957 and was just waiting for me to hit bottom and she could tell me, go for a meeting. I got to tell you guys, with no disrespect to anybody who's gray haired like me, but in 1984, at age 22, when I went to the meetings in India, it was full of gray haired, bald old men with walking sticks who were talking about prayer and meditation and forgiveness and paying money back. Dude, I'm 22. I'm just trying to find a friendly girl on a Friday night, man. What's all this prayer and meditation business? Besides, I'm far away from any religion and this looks like a passport to heaven. I don't need these steps. Step one, I'm not powerless. I'm 22. I'm like Muhammad Ali. I'm young, I'm pretty, I can't be beat. Step two as God, I don't need step two. Step three as God, that's out. Step four, there's nothing wrong with me. That's out. Step five, you guys are crazy if you think I'm going to tell you anything about myself. Step six and seven, my entire character is defective. So let's not even look at that. Eight and nine, you people need some help. Step eight, I have a long list of people that I would like to harm. And step nine, I have a longer list of people that owe me amends. The guy in the bar that called and lied to his wife, the fellow I lent my last $20 to. Oh, where are my amends? Step 10 is God, 11 is God, that's out. And step 12, okay, I'll come for your wretched meetings. Needless to say, I'm not the poster child for AA, and I drank from 1984 to 1990. And I came back this time, and I said I was willing to do anything. And there was this guy speaking at a meeting whom I'd never seen or heard before. And at that time, he was 36 years old. and he was 16 years sober. That blew my mind. I said, this Johnny's got sober at age 20, and I've been just monkeying around from age 22 to 28. So I grabbed the guy after the meeting and I said, dude, what are you doing? How are you doing this? You got to help me. Why? So he said, what do you want? I said, they said something about a sponsor. So would you sponsor me? He said, no, absolutely not. I said, aren't you supposed to do that? He said, no. He said, what I'm supposed to do is, having had an experience with the 12 steps, I'm supposed to share that with you. I can't sponsor you, but I'll be willing to share my experience and take you through the steps. I said, okay, whatever. Stop screwing around with phonetics and I'll just do whatever. So he said, great. Have you ever tried to stop drinking? I said, yeah, every Monday morning for the last 6 years that I've been in AA. Okay, this week it's going to be different. And by 12 o'clock, I'd have a beer or maybe something else. If I couldn't go to work with beer on my breath, I'd probably inhale something or swallow something else. And you guys, your restriction of don't talk about other substances make it very challenging to keep it within the lines. But I said, I've tried. And he said, what happens? I just laughed. He said, are you nuts? I always start drinking again. The longest is 2 months when I had the enlarged liver. He said, okay. He said, but when you do drink, have you ever tried to control? I said, what are you talking about, man? My standard line is 2 drinks before dinner, darling. And darling would have plenty of dinners. I never stopped at 2 drinks. He said, congratulations, you just finished the first half of the first step. I said, where's that? Now, we didn't have big books in India in 1990. There were about 150 meetings in the entire country, and there were maybe about 100 big books. Each meeting had a book, and some members had books. So the guy cracks open the book and he goes to page 44 and he says, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot stop, check. And if when drinking you have little control, check. You're powerless. He said, great. You've taken the first half of first step. He said, what about unmanageability? uh, he cracked it open to page 52. He said, let's look at the bedevilments. He called them the unmanageables. He says, how's your personal relationships? I said, are you kidding? I'm fighting with anybody who lives in the house with me, with the neighbors, with the cigarette vendor across the street, anybody in the public who has the misfortune to be crossing my path, everybody at work, random people on the street. I have no personal relationships with anyone. He said, and can you control your emotional natures? I said, what? I wake up and the phone rings, I'm in a rage. And if somebody cuts my salary for not coming to work 4 days out of 5 in the week, I get into total, unhappiness and sadness. I said, okay. And does that make you miserable and depressed? I said, dude, I'm 28, I'm broke, I'm unemployed, I'm single, I'm homeless. Wouldn't you be miserable and depressed? He said, so I guess you're not able to make a living. I said, $3 American in the bank. And so that makes you angry and unhappy, and do you feel useless? I said, check, check, check. And are you able to be of real help to anyone else? I said, I can't even help myself. He said, congratulations. You've met the 8 questions they ask for unmanageability. He said the unmanageability that AA talks about is the emotional unmanageability, which leads to a mental status. Page 35. The mental state that precedes the relapse is the crux of the problem. So if I don't have relationships, I can't control my emotional nature, I'm miserable and depressed, I can't make a living, I'm full of fear, I'm unhappy, I'm feeling useless, and I can't help anybody, that's going to mess with my brain. And when it messes with my brain, he cracked it open to the doctor's opinion, the 4th page of the doctor's opinion, last line, and he said that makes you restless and irritable and discontented. The RID factor. I said, damn, every time. And what's the solution? The next page, first line. Unless Roy can again experience the sense of ease and comfort that comes after 90 days. Oh, no, sorry. That comes at once by taking a few drinks. I said, dude. He said, okay, let's look at page 58. He said, do you want what we have? I said, absolutely. Are you willing to do anything to get it? I said, yes. He said, write that down, sign it, give it to me. He said, if you ever object, I'm going to show you what you wrote. This guy was a cross between Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun. He took no crap. He sat behind me at AA meetings, and there's a TV show in America called NCIS where the boss keeps whacking one of the guys on his head. If I ever try to even glance sideways at some female walking in, bang, look at the speaker. First row only. Anyway, uh, so he said, so you're ready to take the step? I said, yeah, but those guys say wait 90 days. He said, you show me where it says 90 days in the big book, and I will strip naked. I will go to front of Parliament House and I will eat your big book on live TV. He said, it's not there. He says, if you want what we have and you're willing to do anything, he doesn't say do it after 90 days. I said, I'm willing, I'm ready. I was getting all fired up. So he said, cool, page 30. You got to admit to your innermost self that you're an alcoholic, and this is the first step in recovery. He said, don't tell me, admit to yourself. And he said, who's an alcoholic? Doctor's opinion. If you have this physical allergy, when you drink, your body craves more. And when you stop, your mind says, I want more. That's the illness. Now, I knew what allergy is. My sister in Vancouver is allergic to fish. We found out when she was 15. I got to tell you guys, for the last 40 years, she's not eaten fish. She does not go to any meetings of Fish Eaters Anonymous. She has not done the fish eating 12 steps. She's not running down frickin' Canal Street trying to stop people from buying fish in New York City. She got an illness, she stopped eating fish. I couldn't do that. Doctors have told me, counselors have told me, judges have told me, bosses have told me, girlfriends and family. Dude, there's something wrong with you. Don't drink. Yeah, tomorrow. That's it. I admit. I've taken step one. He said, great. So let's do step two. I said, now? Now look, the meeting ended at 8:30 in the evening, and like this happened in about 10 minutes. He said, look what it says on page 47. As soon as, not after 90 days, you can say that you're willing to believe in a power greater than yourself, you're on your way. I said, well, he said, do you believe in God? No, no, India, religious country. I said, no, I don't. He said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You'll have to find some other idiot in AA who'll deal with your type of alcoholic. I said, I want to stay sober. He said, you took out the paper. You said you would be willing. 10 minutes later, takes out the paper. You said you would be willing to do anything. I said, okay, what do I need to do? Page 46. To my great relief, I did not need to believe in somebody else's conception of a higher power. So I didn't have to go with my grandmother to church on Fridays and not eat meat and burn candles, kneel down, stand up, lie flat, and with my other Hindu grandmother and write agarbattis and fast. And wow, my own concept, however inadequate, was sufficient. I thought, what does that mean? I know I got a good education, but brain was a little mocused at that time. So he said, Roy, do you have any friends left? I said, yeah, about three. He said, what's so great about them? I said, well, they lend me money, they bail me out, they forgive all my crap, they hook me up with jobs, they introduce me to girls. He said, well, if there was actually a God in the universe that had those qualities, would you be willing to believe? I said, absolutely. I've never had any problem with my concept of anything. He said, great, page 47, top of the page. And therefore, Roy, when we talk to you about God, we mean your own conception of God. So God can be God, good orderly direction, God, get out of debt, which I was in, God, go out dancing, which I did every Friday, God, good old daddy, sponsor became daddy over there, God, group of drugs, whatever the heck your God is, man, we don't even want to know, page 28. We think it's no business of ours what power you choose as long as it's not me. I said, okay, I'm willing to believe in my concept. He said, great. You've done one part of step two, which is the willing to believe. He said, let's look at your insanity. Yeah, I looked at him. He said, page 23. There is an obsession that you're going to beat the game. How many times have you woken up and said, this time it'll be different? Every time. Page 24. This time I'll drink like other people, like my mother, having that one bloody drink with some black colored label. If she doesn't have that brand, she'll just say, no, no, thank you. I only drink this. I fly a lot on work. My biggest resentment of those idiots who sit next to me. There was one guy who ordered a mini. He poured half into his plastic thing, stirred it with ice, and put the other half in his pocket. What are you doing? He said, no, I'll have it when I go home. Who lets these people near liquor? This is alcohol abuse. And then he didn't even drink it. He was stirring it for 10 minutes. And I'm there, sober alcoholic, 20 years. Drink, 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 drink. Ah. So clearly I'm not a normal social drinker. And my third insanity is on page 30. Somehow, someday I'll control and enjoy my drinking. I said, I'm totally insane. And I do believe. He said, great, you've taken step 2. He said, let's do step 3. I said, now? Yep. Said, open to page 60. We all end at the ABCs. The next 2 words are being convinced. Are you convinced that you're powerless, your life is unmanageable, that you're crazy, and you failed on your own power, and only a power greater than yourself can help you? I said, I'm in. He said, good. Then being convinced, you're now at step 3, which is you made a decision to turn your will and life over to a higher power. I hear many people in AA, and I had this saying, we hand over. I'm handing over, Jack. I'm turning over. When my wife and I were living in Long Island and we were both working full time, we would turn over our child to childcare in the morning, and they would do all the childcare stuff, change the diapers, teach them the ABCs, and put the toys back, and they would hand them back at 4 in the afternoon. Turnover, turnover. There's no handover here. The handover is when I'd be walking through customs trying to get 6 bottles of black through my bag, and I work at the airport and say, Roy, you're only allowed 2. What do I do with the other 4 bottles? Handover. I'm never going to see it again. So when people just tell me, hand your problems over to God, what's he going to do? Nothing. Turn it over. So he looked at that third step and he said, look, it's about getting rid of self. Selfishness is the root of the problem, page 62. You can't solve it. And therefore, at the bottom of 62, I made a decision not to be that actor anymore who's trying to run the whole show. And I said, whatever my concept of God was, I'm willing to turn over stuff to Him. What does turnover mean? I wake up in the morning and I do my version of third step prayer from page 63. Hi, God, it's Roy the alcoholic checking in who has no will. Please take away my difficulties, no job, no money, no girlfriend, no this, no that, no the other, and give me somebody to help. That's my third step. Relieve me of the bondage. Take away my difficulties. That's what I'm turning over. And I'm being given sanity of thought to apply for a job and, behave decently and respectfully in mixed company. That's my third step. I said, great. He said, good. Now let's do 4. I said, now, dude, it's 9 o'clock. We've done 3 steps in half an hour. Page 63, bottom of the page. Next, we start on a plan of vigorous action. First step of which was a personal house cleaning, page 64. Step 3 was a vital and crucial step which would have little permanent effect unless after 90 days followed. No, unless at once followed by an effort to face him. He says, no, 90 days nonsense. It's at once, man. I said, okay, what do I need to do? He said, you've already done most of your 4th step. It's about 4 things. It's about being pissed off. It's about being afraid. It's about your your sexual misconduct and the people you've hurt. And I said, where, pray, may I have done that 4th step? He said, in the bar, you jackass. You'd go to the bar, you'd have a couple of drinks, and all your resentments would flood out. My boss like this, my wife's like that. Oh, man, you got that. And 2 more drinks, and then all your fears will come. Oh, my God, what's he going to say when I come home without the paycheck? Will the cops stop me? And then 2 more drinks, and you start your sexual misconduct. By that time, you're 3 sheets to the wind, so the ladies have escaped. And all the people you harmed, the grandmother you kept up till 2 o'clock in the morning, wondering whether I'll come home alive. The parents who had hopes falling in the eyes of my family and friends, their dreams, their aspirations, people who trusted me in positions of, responsibility, whom I let down, lost their bags, delayed their flights, and what have you. Yeah, man, I can do that. So I started on my 4th step. And I'm not like the guys nowadays, like they just rocket through this. They're all trying to beat Bill W. Bill W. did the steps in 3 days in the hospital, and Dr. Bob did it in 3 weeks. Bill got admitted on December 11th, 1934. 11, 12, 13, he detoxed. 14, 15, 16. 14, he had the spiritual experience. 15, 16, 17, did the steps with Abby. On page 13, on the 18th, he left the hospital, never drank again. Dr. Bob took 3 weeks. I was a lazy guy. I would do nothing from Monday to Saturday. You know how we are. Hang out after the meeting, go for coffees, gossip about the speaker. Oh my God, he spoke too long. What is he going on and on? And then on Saturday night, oh my God, I got to meet sponsor tomorrow. Quickly write a few pages. So it took me about 3 months. And then April, May, June, July. By the end of July, I was done. He came over to my house, old style sponsorship. He took my whole fourth step and he started reading it. And he's making faces and he's making some, oh, no, 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 no. And he's making notes on the paper, very disconcerting. I'm sitting across the room and I'm wondering what's going on. And when he was done, he handed me this paper. And he's on one side was all the list of defects of character he had pulled out of my fourth step. And on the other side were all the amends I had to make. So he said, hey, look at these defects. Do you want to keep any of these? I said, yeah, I think I'd like to keep the manipulation, the lust, and maybe some laziness. He said, okay. So page 76, paragraph 1, if you're not willing to let go of those three, you pray for willingness. He said, what about the other 24 defects? Are you ready to get rid of them? I said, I am. He said, cool. Second paragraph, page 76, you say the 7-step prayer, and I was done. I said, okay, can we rest now? No 90 days nonsense. Paragraph 3, first word, now we need more action. Can you imagine how those guys wrote the book in 1937 to 1939? These guys were desperate to solve this problem and get on with their lives. And it's so clear, the timetable through the steps. We went over my list. He said, okay, all these people, whom can you make amends to tonight? I said, well, my neighbor's two daughters who were studying for the exams, and I was blasting Deep Purple and Jethro Tull at 2 o'clock in the morning and AC/DC and what have you. I can make amends to the cigarette vendor across the street, my dogs. He said, okay. What about any of these amends you'll have to make later? I said, yeah, my grandmother's moved to Australia. My brothers and sisters in the States. I've got two cousins in Luton Beds in England, and I'll have to save money to go and make those amends later. So he said, good, stop smoking, start saving. Attila the Hun, who tells a newcomer to stop smoking and start saving? He didn't care. I didn't care either. Okay, which of these amends are you not sure about making? I said, well, I worked at the airport, haven't always walked the straight and narrow. Some of them might land me in hot water. He said, then you pray for those amends. And which of these can you never make? I said, I don't know. He said, all those women you were messing around with, you can't be going to their husbands. Hey, I'm so sorry that I had. Now, man, you just change your character from page 69, your sexual ID. Live up to it. My sexual ID is terrible. Women, blinking, no engaged women, no other people's. Not done the 12 steps. No Al-Anons. Freaking pool is getting smaller and smaller. I'm left with divorcees and widows and single people and drinkers. Yeah, I did drinkers. But that's what I had to do. And I started on my amends. And then we came to step 10 from page 84. And he said, I do my 10th step while I'm making the amends, as I cleaned up the past. Because I'm going to do new crap as I go along. I can't spend the rest of my life walking around with a notebook filling out columns. People will think I'm crazy. Oh, hold on one sec. Let me mark that resentment. Dude, you're in a staff meeting. Put that book away and pay attention. And then we come to step 11. Now, just because I'm from India, don't think I'm going to start sitting cross-legged and demonstrating various positions of some yogic endeavors. I don't. I love the big book. When we retire at night, I ask myself the 10 questions. That's my freaking 11th step at night. When I wake up in the morning on awakening, I ask God to direct my thinking and make my plans for the day. Paper and pen. That's it. When in doubt, and I love this. Page 87. There are a couple of people here who will call me and say, hey, what do I do? And I'll listen to the whole question. And I say, hey, do you have your big book with you? Can you please open to page 86? And the last paragraph says that we are not sure, we ask God. It does not say we ask Roy. I know there's a 5th edition of the big book coming out. So if God's name is replaced with Roy, you can call me. Dude, I can't even manage my own life. What am I going to give you answers? I don't know. And then we came to step 12. And I love step 12. So beautifully put out. Page 90, find out everything you can about the prospect. Page 91, go alone, see him alone, and tell him your story. Page 92, explain the disease. Page 93, talk about spiritual personality exchange. Page 94, outline the program of action. Admit defeat, ask for help, you know, look at the crap you've done, share it with somebody, clean up what you can, and help someone else. Page 95, give him homework. Tell him, read the book. If you want to do this, call me back. Page 96, if he calls, having had this experience yourself, you, Roy, can give him much valuable advice after 90 days. It's not there. If I've had the experience, I can share my experience. End of story. I've had a blast with my recovery. It's been 33 years and a couple of weeks that I last found an essay to drink. And I'll just share one, two quick things, Glenn, and then I'll shut up. I'm not known to be a short-winded speaker. You should never have called me for this meeting, but you'll have to deal with other people's resentments. In 1995, I was in Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. Cricket lovers will know that, Dubai, Sharjah, stuff like that. There was no AA there. The meetings were in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And another guy came in, and the two of us started the first meeting. And one day we got a call that somebody wanted to stop drinking. Can you imagine me telling the guy, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't come and 12-step you because some old timer said, never go on a 12-step call alone. Read the book, see a man alone. I went, talked to the guy, shared some experience. He's still sober today. I just brought his 27-year coin from the US and I gave it to the guy in India. Every Tuesday, Mark and I would call the US Embassy and drive them crazy. Hey, any warships in town? Sir, there's classified information. You don't understand. There's sailors on that ship that need a meeting. Sir, that's classified information. So Mark and I would go down to the Sharjah port with a little sign, any friends of Bill W. on board. And we pick up guys and take them to our meeting. Poor sailors on the ship for 8 months thinking they're going for a meeting. Mark and me were the meeting. Here's the spiritual experience. Where's Debbie gone? In 2002, I was speaking at the Hicksville Group's 50th anniversary, and I shared this experience. And after the meeting, this guy came up to me with tears flowing down his face. He said, dude, you picked me up there in Sharjah. I was 3 months sober, and I have 7 years now. That's a freaking spirit. My hair's standing now. That's a spiritual experience. I've had fun. I came to the States. I went to college at age 35. I became a professional at helping people solve the problems we have. I got married in sobriety. I met this girl at Dr. Bob's house. Yay! You got sober in Mexico. I got sober in India. Let's get married. Neither of us had read page 119 of the 12 and 12 about boy meets girl on AA campus. Great marriage where it lasted 20 years. Our 21-year-old son has never seen either of us drink. We had an amicable divorce. We decided to split after 10 years and we applied the first tradition. Our common welfare is our son. His recovery, his life depends on family unity. And we lived together amicably for another 7 years, separate bedrooms, until he went off to military school. We had an amicable, this is great. At age 58, I was able to go back to India and start doing some social projects over here. I get to travel a lot. I wouldn't exchange this life for anything. Most people get to live only one life. People like us get to live 2 lives in one lifetime. So, Glenn, thank you so much for asking me to share my experience, strength, and hope at this meeting. I don't know how much time is left, but thank you so much, everybody. And if there's time left, just open it up. Thanks, guys.